Thank you all so much for tuning in to today's edition of AJC Live. Whether it's live on this beautiful day in June 2016 or at some future date as a podcast. We have a very special guest on today's show. His name is Professor Mohammed Alsiadi. He is a local member of the Muslim community who is originally from Syria. A gifted composer, he received his bachelor's from Syria's most prestigious Institute of Music. He is currently the director of the U.S. Mideast Program for the Center for the Study of Genocide and Human Rights at Rutgers University, as well as a coordinator and senior lecturer in the Arabic Language and Cultural Studies program at Fordham University. He is also pursuing his doctorate in American Studies at Rutgers University in Newark. Welcome, Mohammed Alsiadi, to AJC Live.
Thank you, Scott.
So I have to ask you as a first question, how does an accomplished Syrian musician end up as a professor with what I see as three very distinct and different specialties: human rights, Arabic language, and American studies, none of which are really related to music? Briefly tell us your story.
I grew up in Aleppo, Syria, and I studied by coincidence with one of the great composer in the Middle East, his name Nadim al-Darwish. And I studied with him for almost 8 years as a hobby. Then I went to Damascus to study for 5 years at the Academy of Music. In addition, I studied Arabic literature. So from the beginning, I was between these two, hobby and Arabic literature. Then when I came to the U.S., I went to Rutgers to study for my music degree. And then I went to a PhD in American Studies to focus on Arab American identity post 9/11. And my focus was using music as a space to create cultural centers here in New Jersey.
Okay, so somehow they're all tied together.
They're tied together, right, right.
So what brought you to the United States? Just to study, or you had a particular reason?
I will put it this way. It came for 3 reasons: to learn about American culture, two, for a political reason, because I already filed a lawsuit against the Minister of Culture, which is today she's deputy, first deputy of Bashar al-Assad. And actually she's a vice president. That is her job. Her name is Najah al-Attar. And I filed a lawsuit because they play with degrees and scholarships. So I was fool enough to file a lawsuit against the Minister of Culture. Then I have no reason to stay in the country because they threaten my life. And if either you withdraw this case or you disappear. So within, I would say, a month, my lawyer helped me. She was a wonderful lawyer to leave Syria. And then from Syria, I came to the U.S.
And what year was that?
It was 1997.
Okay. So you've been here for a long time.
For a long time, yes.
But as a human rights expert, I'm sure you're following closely what's going on in Syria and certainly in your hometown of Aleppo.
Absolutely. And actually, I was working with the Genocide Center at Rutgers, or Damascus Spring, in 2008. So I was doing assessments. Are we going to have a new revolution in the Middle East, specifically in Syria and Mauritania and so on? And the question, it already started in Damascus 2004 through intellectuals and so on. So we prepare ourselves. So in 2011, when this has happened, we already engaged with certain projects to engage with the Middle East, specifically through arts, the Voice of the Free Syrian Children, which is a project that we have it around the world. We just came from Oxford at School Foundation. They invited us to raise awareness about the Syrian refugees. And this is the house of that project is our Genocide Center at Rutgers University, in addition with the famous composer Malik Jandali, who is composing all his music for the Syrian children and raising awareness. So the Genocide Center also engaging with a discussion with political opposition groups around the globe and inside Syria. And in addition, we are keeping files about the genocide in Syria. That is really the job of the Genocide Center. Okay, so again, engaging with different projects at the same time.
All right, so let's get right to it. I mean, I asked you to be on this show several weeks ago. Sometimes timing is everything. Who knew that 51 diplomats would sign an internal memo just, I think, over the weekend or the end of last week, sharply critical of the Obama administration's position on Syria or policy in Syria. They urged the United States to take military action against the government of President Bashar al-Assad. Where do you stand on this? Has the Obama administration done enough with regard to Syria?
We're going to divide his approach to a couple of points. One of them, in terms of aid, the U.S. Still is number one in the world with sending aid to the Syrians. Most of this aid goes to Bashar al-Assad, which is, I'm laughing, it's just crazy to send supplies, foods, and equipments through the Red Cross. From the Red Cross, they send this to the Syrian militias, which is we call the Syrian army, killing their own citizens. So that is really a major problem. And in addition, we failed to have a no-fly zone. We failed to distribute food through air. We failed, a lot of politicians who work with Obama, specifically Ford, left the Syrian files case because they felt there's a dead end and there's no vision about a solution in the Middle East. And we see the result, a vacuum. Putin today took over, and he is demanding the Syrians to acknowledge the occupation of the Russians in Syria. So by bombing 24 hours. Yesterday they burned Aleppo with all kind of guns. Last night, if you look at the images through cyberspace, it's just terrifying, scary. 1,000 Syrians just get killed since the Russians' invasion in Syria. So all this happened because our lack of vision. We don't have any vision about the Middle East, and we don't know what to do anymore.
But at this point, if the U.S. were to go into Syria with the military, they would essentially be battling the Russians, no?
And that's link it this way. We went to fight ISIS in Syria, and that is intelligent. This is very important. Putin was in total isolation before October, before he sent his army, his pilots, to bomb the Syrian civilians and hospitals. Decided that the U.S. is not going to do, they're not going to send the troops, which is fine. They're not going to engage by removing Assad from power, which is great. So the space now is divided in Syria between the Iranian malicious fighters, Hezbollah, and Putin. It's just like Syria now is a piece of pie that we need divided between three of us. And the one who's voiceless today is Bashar al-Assad. He cannot leave his castle. He cannot even put 5 ministers in the same room anymore. So we see truly occupation. Two, we see that our policies, as of today, push this 50 plus ambassadors, American ambassadors, to sign this paper and send it to the president to encourage him to take a step, which is, I doubt he's going to change his mind. So AIDS is not enough. We need a political solution in Syria. I'm totally against putting any armies, any troops on the ground. But at the same time, we need to figure out a way to remove Assad from the power and engage with political systems.
Very, very interesting discussion with Professor Mohammed Alsiadi. This is AJC Live on WVOX 1460 AM. I'm Scott Richmond, the local director for AJC. We welcome your comments or questions at 914-636-0110. Again, I'm speaking with Westchester resident Professor Mohammed Alsiadi about the situation in Syria.